Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 22nd of January 2024, and these are the stories that we'll be highlighting during the course of our show. We'll begin with the robust friendship, the ironclad friendship and collaborative partnership that exists between the Islamic Republic of Pakistan and the People's Republic of China. These are two countries that have been there for the good and during the bad times as well. China has always supported Pakistan whenever it comes to any opportunity, and it has always been on Pakistan's side whenever Pakistan has needed support on the international front or on the regional front. We will be highlighting different aspects of that. Of course, 10 years of this China-Pakistan economic corridor have also ended, and a new phase is beginning as far as this aspect of the relationship between Pakistan and China are also concerned. And we will be highlighting that in our first segment. We have a special guest with you who we will be introducing during the course of that first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns, of course, day 108 of the conflict between Palestine and Israel. Whatever is happening, whether it be the health crisis that is slowly and steadily creeping into, and has already crept into, but it is slowly engulfing almost all the Palestinians that are there. With that, we have the number of casualties that have now gone beyond 25,000, and the number of injured, of course, has also exceeded 62,000. The fact also remains that there are some developments as far as diplomatic efforts are concerned. There is going to be a special moot of the European Union countries with the Israeli and the Palestinian sides, in which they will be trying to look for some kind of an end to this conflict and move towards a two-state solution, a solution that Israel does not want to move towards. This is going to be our second segment. And finally, we'll be talking about Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who's ended his Republican United States presidential campaign just before the New Hampshire primary and has endorsed Donald Trump after failing to emerge as a serious challenger for the White House against the 77-year-old former president. So this is going to be our lineup for today. We'll begin with our first segment, our first most important segment, and that concerns the relationship between Pakistan and China. A friendship that has seen only ups and no downs, a friendship where there is a huge reliance on each other on regional and international issues, and we have always been on each other's side. China has always supported Pakistan whenever Pakistan has needed it. And to highlight all of those, there's also has been very recently a fourth meeting of the Cpec Joint Working Group on International Cooperation and Coordination, in which there were different representations. The Vice Foreign Minister, Mr. Sun Weidong, was also here from China. We managed to interview him some time back as well. And we will be highlighting different aspects of that meeting and engulfing the various aspects of this collaborative partnership between Pakistan and China, also talking about the Embassy of Pakistan in China and what its role has been during all these years and what should we look forward to in the coming years. We've been joined, ladies and gentlemen, by the Ambassador of Pakistan to China, His Excellency Khalil Hashmi Saab. He's right here with me in the studios. Khalil Hashmi Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. It's a pleasure to have you here in our show. You've had an illustrious career, Excellency, for about 30 years, if I'm not wrong, with the Foreign Service. Whether it be Geneva, whether it be now China, that you have as the new post of ambassador, what have been the prized moments of your career till now? I know you have a lot going for you in the future as well, but looking back, what do you feel were the highlights of your career?
Well, thank you for having me. Yes, it's been a 3-decade journey, diplomatic journey, very rewarding, very satisfying. So I won't go into much detail, just to give you perhaps 2 recent examples of those moments that I would remember. There are many occasions which are personal to me, but I think what matters is where you really derive a sense of satisfaction, and that is when you are really representing your country, defending its interests, promoting its interests. So one, of course, was last year when we were doing the Geneva conference on climate resilient Pakistan. So this is when we were able to mobilize a lot of countries which came, a lot of organizations which came, and together we were able to mobilize something like over $9 billion. And that was $9 billion of pledges to rebuild, reconstruct for the damages that were caused by massive flooding. The other was also the same year, but that's another subject, and that was we had seen a lot of recurring incidents of the deliberate desecration of the Holy Quran. So we led the OIC group in Geneva, and we mounted a resolution which specifically addressed this issue. So the resolution we drafted was about countering religious hatred. And that spoke to, basically the idea was to prevent and to preempt future incidents and to build some legal deterrence. So we were able to get that resolution adopted, and I think it's a matter of satisfaction for us as a country, but also for the OIC and Muslims around the world, that after that resolution was adopted by the Human Rights Council with a substantial margin. So at least one country, Denmark, has passed legislation now where these incidents would now be a culpable offense. So that was one of the key objectives, and that's what I think these two incidents, two occasions that I would cherish and remember them as significant contributions.
Ambassador Khalil, Hashmi, you've had an illustrious career as far as multilateral diplomacy is concerned. You've had around 3 assignments as far as United Nations is concerned. Also, how do you feel this broad experience that you've had, which hasn't ended yet, has shaped your perspective as far as this current assignment that you have as ambassador of Pakistan to China is concerned?
So multilateral space is one, it is pretty intense. So it prepares you for multitasking. Let me put it this way. So you are handling various subjects. You are handling and you are interacting with probably at any given time, at a minimum, perhaps 2-3 dozen delegations, different countries, top diplomats. So a range of issues, not just one subject like, for instance, human rights or arms control or health or refugees. So it's multiple subjects. So they, in the multilateral space, in many ways shapes your personality and prepares you for multitasking. So I mean, when you look at China, we have a very multi-dimensional relationship. So in a way, I would say that for someone having a multilateral experience and having been prepared, I would say, in a way to handle different tasks and different aspects of the relationship. So I consider myself as fortunate to be at a place where this relationship that we have is the most consequential and the most productive. So I'm looking forward to my time in China to be able to further solidify the relationship that we have.
You talk of consequential and productive relationship with the People's Republic of China. You are also visiting Pakistan now to attend the 4th meeting of the CPEC Joint Working Group in International Cooperation and Coordination. What has been the significance of this meeting? This is the 4th edition of that meeting, of course. What have been its key outcomes, or what kind of implications do you feel it is going to have on the future of Pak-China relations?
So it's an important platform. Of course, this is a joint working group. And this is one of the 11 joint working groups that we have under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor Joint Coordination Committee. So this was one significance was that this meeting was taking place after 3 years. So there was a lot to review and to take stock of what has happened. So this group is essentially about how can we engage third party, which means other countries who may be willing or may be interested in partnering with Pakistan and China in various projects. So we've the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has put out a press release that speaks for itself. But briefly, what I would say is that we had a detailed, a very productive discussion. We are working through modalities in which or through which other interested friendly countries can come in and join, and how exactly they can join in which projects. So that's work. That's a work that's nearing completion. And then we also discussed how think tanks and media in both countries, they can help raise awareness about CPEC in general and what it means, especially for Pakistan and its people and for its economy. We also discuss these mostly self-serving narrative that CPEC somehow is a debt trap, and it is ultimately going to be something negative for Pakistan. So that's something we discuss, how to disabuse these false narratives surrounding CPEC or some of its projects.
Now, Ambassador, you talk about the misunderstandings or this fallacious narratives that, of course, were part of this meeting. Speaking of that, I mean, it's interesting that you point out the debt trap that a lot of people have been pointing out towards maliciously, but of course, this is part of the misinformation or disinformation campaign that has been going on since quite some time. Kindly explain this whole concept that has been circulating of CPEC being a debt trap and how we need to counter this argument.
First of all, I think this is a narrative war. Essentially, in this, when people say this is a, especially coming from the Western Hemisphere, that this is, CPEC is somehow a debt trap for Pakistan. This is a political opinion or a position. I haven't seen any argument which is based or supported by rational explanation or some objective data. It is very clear that each country, whether it is a developing or an advanced country, takes loans at various levels from various sources at various rates. This is a very normal activity that each state undertakes. So, for instance, if you look at the GDP, debt to GDP ratio, and look at the top 10 countries, Pakistan is nowhere there. Our debt ratio to GDP is close to 50 or 52, 53%. There are many advanced economies which have, for instance, the United States has more than 200% debt to GDP, and there are other advanced economies. Of course, there are developing countries also. So each situation is different, but this is a normal activity for states to take on loan and then to be able to develop their infrastructure and then accelerate their economic growth and then to pay off a part of it, but continue taking loans, because there are no country, even if it is very well advanced, is able to deploy or to generate or dedicate a large chunk of its national resources while it has the option to rely on multilateral loans or bilateral loans or grants or some development assistance. So my last word on this is that Pakistan and China must be doing something great together, that these countries have to go to such lengths and craft fallacious narratives about CPEC being a debt trap. It has no objective basis.
All right, Ambassador Saab, we are speaking of CPEC, but I'd like to highlight many other aspects, just for my understanding and for our viewers as well. We are in 2024. 10 years have passed since the CPEC, this huge mega project under the BRI began between Pakistan and China. How do you see the significance of this corridor for Pakistan?
It's very significant. Certainly, this is part of our all-weather strategic cooperative partnership. So it's a major piece of it. So with CPEC coming in, of course, it is natural for people to focus on, because it is over 50 projects, over nearly $26 billion investment, primarily in infrastructure and energy, but also industrial cooperation. So if you look at the results, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. So if you take, for instance, energy, the energy projects cumulatively in the last 10 years, we have added more than 8,000 megawatts of electricity to our national grid. More than 200,000 jobs have been created. More than 800 kilometers of expressways or highways, or let's say motorway, has been built. More than 800 kilometers of electricity transmission line has been laid, 880. Almost similar 880 kilometers of fiber optic cable has been laid between two countries. So, and this type of investment adds between 1 to 2% of Pakistan's GDP. So it's a significant, I think these statistics speak for themselves. Where we are right now is that the infrastructure and energy, they are the two key ingredients for any economy to accelerate then its growth. So we have now the essentials in place. So the second phase would be from, if I can put it simply, is from infrastructure to industrialization.
All right.
So that's the shift that we are looking at in the second phase of CPEC.
Speaking of the different phases, the first 10 years have been quite important for both Pakistan and China. What do you see as the major achievements in the first decade of CPEC?
As I said, primarily we achieved a lot on the energy front. I mean, if we go back 10 years, we had a terrible situation of frequent blackouts, load shedding. It was a serious problem, so that problem was overcome in large measure due to the investments that came from China. And also the transport infrastructure or port, Gwadar port, now Gwadar airport, a new airport is coming up, and which is likely to be inaugurated this year. As I said, over 200,000 jobs were created. Over 8,000 megawatt of electricity was added to the national grid. So all in all, preparing Pakistan's economy for an industrial takeoff, or to set the Pakistan economy on a higher growth rate level.
All right.
So that's where we are. These are the net achievements of the first decade.
And you said that you are going to look forward for a transition towards industrialization in this second phase in the years that are to come as far as CPEC is concerned. But also in this fourth meeting of the joint working group, you have both sides, in fact the Pakistani side and the Chinese side, have agreed to enhance focus on industry that you've talked about, but also agriculture, information technology, science and technology, and ensure tangible socio-economic benefits for the people. How would you categorize all these different objectives of this second phase of China-Pakistan economic corridor? I know industrialization is on the top of the agenda, but then how do you, categorize the rest?
So we are looking at it in different ways. One, for instance, of course, industrialization or industrial cooperation would remain a priority, which in itself means manufacturing, which means when you invest in manufacturing or develop industries, people get a lot of jobs. That adds to your acceleration of economic growth. But then you put in other elements like information technology. We are primarily an agricultural country, so agriculture cooperation is a big area. There's a lot of current focus also, and rightly so. There are different sub-sectors of agriculture. Livestock is one, but even higher yield seeds, when you bring them in, you increase your productive capacity in major crops or even vegetables, fruits, but also science and technology. So last year, the Vice Premier Khalid from China visited Pakistan as a special representative of President Xi Jinping, and he spoke about 5 corridors. So corridor of growth, livelihoods, innovation, green development, and inclusivity. So that's another layer of it. So it would be these industrialization and these innovation, livelihoods, inclusivity, green development, they will go hand in hand. But as I was saying, it's just to put it in simple words, in terms of making a transition from infrastructure to industrialization, that would be the mainstay of it. It doesn't necessarily mean that we would abandon infrastructure, developing infrastructure. That would also continue, but the main focus would be industrialization, and through which to create more jobs and to spur economic growth.
Referring back to the meeting and of course CPEC as well, there was also this agreement on sharing best practices as far as intellectual knowledge pool of CPEC was concerned, and also BRI development through enhanced international communication and cooperation. We've had that in the first phase as well. How do you plan as an ambassador of Pakistan to China to further enhance on it?
So there is this collaboration between think tanks and media. That's part of the conversation that takes place in the joint working group. So that would be the 2 major tools in terms of putting together these good practices which exist both in Pakistan and China in other sectors, but also from other countries. So my job as ambassador would be to encourage the Chinese think tanks to continue to collaborate with their Pakistani counterparts, and wherever possible also to bring in other think tanks where they can collaborate on research, on looking at various practices. And this is where also the role of media also comes in, where it amplifies those research findings, for instance, or good practices, or the intellectual outputs. So I would and my team in Beijing would be fostering, facilitating, and coordinating media interaction especially between Pakistani and Chinese print, electronic, and social media platforms.
Wonderful. I think that's good news, and we already are from Pakistan Television collaborating with CGTN and others as well. So I hope through your kind intervention we'll be broadening that intervention and that cooperation. How important is China for Pakistan, Excellency? We know that its relationship is considered to be a cornerstone of our foreign policy. What is, in your point of view, the strategic importance of this bond?
Well, this is, we call our bilateral relationship unique, we call it special, we call it all-weather, and for each expression, there are many other expressions, higher than the Himalayas, deeper than the oceans, sweeter than honey, and all of these expressions are not merely rhetoric. I think what is significant is that this relationship has stood the test of times. There have been many changes at the international regional level. We passed through the Cold War, and then we had a post-Cold War phase. We are now passing through a very turbulent geopolitical environment. New alignments and realignments are taking place. The old alliances are giving way to new ones. But there is one constant, and that is a very solid relationship between Pakistan and China. So that speaks to its unique nature. And I think the second element of this is a very high degree of trust between our leadership, between our institutions. The third factor is also there has been, it's not just mere talk. Both countries have stood by each other when their core interests are concerned, whether it is internationally or they have supported each other bilaterally. I'll give you some examples, for instance. So Pakistan was the first non-communist country to allow its airline to operate from China. So Pakistan International Airlines was the window to China, window to the world for Chinese people. Then in the 1970-71, Pakistan provided another bridge or an opening to China for the United States. So brought these two big countries together. So Pakistan was also a leading country which provided an opening and facilitated China's entry to the United Nations and to claim its rightful place at the United Nations. At the same time, China has also stood by Pakistan internationally and nationally also. For instance, until recently, 2019, 5th of August 2019, when India unilaterally annexed Jammu and Kashmir. So we worked with China, and 3 meetings of the UN Security Council were held. So China came out strongly in support of, and it was a principled support. And China has called for compliance with UN Security Council resolution, respect for international law, and respect for bilateral agreements. There was also, CPEC in many ways is a big booster, economic help for Pakistan. In 2008, for instance, there was a big earthquake in southwest of China, Wenchuan earthquake. And this is where the Chinese people, wherever I go, invariably this conversation comes up, and they express their gratitude for Pakistan, because at the time Pakistan gave all its tents, and I mean all its tents, all from its reserves everywhere. So they were sent by aeroplane, by ships, by trucks. So this was a gesture which the Chinese people, they remember to date. But of course, China has come to Pakistan's help, whether it was flooding or the 2005 earthquake or in other ways. So this is a relationship which is long-standing, which is unique, which is ironclad, and the proof of it is that despite many changes in the last 72, 73 years, it remains ever strong.
Finally, Ambassador Saab, I'd like to understand your perspective on the evolution of this relationship under your guidance as the ambassador of Pakistan to China. You've already served in Beijing between 2008 and 2010. You return after a couple of years. What will be your priorities, or what are your priorities in this new role, and what do you intend to achieve during your tenure?
Well, of course, my single most priority is to further deepen the bilateral relationship that we have at various in its various dimensions, politically, economically, socially, people-to-people exchanges, other dimensions. Trade and investment is an area where I think I would be spending a lot of time, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this would be at the cost of other areas. So, but this is an area where we see a lot of scope, and this would be, I've already constituted an economic team in the mission. Of course, we have officers handling these issues, but I have put together a team with an exclusive and a lot of focus on economic dimension of our relationship and how to leverage and promote and encourage further investments from China in various sectors of Pakistan's economy. So that's an area where I would be, paying a lot of attention and focusing a lot.
All right, Ambassador Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. I hope that your tenure as the ambassador of Pakistan to China will bring in a more robust action from the embassy in Beijing. Not only that, but it will also bring in new avenues for collaboration, cooperation, as you have very ably pointed out, in economy and trade, and I'm sure in so many other spheres. With your experience, your background, and your previous tenure in Beijing, where you understand China better than others do, I think here it's looking forward to a very fruitful 3 to 4 years, if not more, in China. And we hope to also collaborate with you on different avenues as far as highlighting various aspects of Pak-China relationship is concerned. Thank you very much, Excellency, to have joined us. We wish you all the very best in your tenure as the Ambassador of Pakistan to China.
Thank you very much.
Let's come to our second segment, but we have to go to a short break before that. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and our second story, of course, concerns the conflict between Israel and Palestine that has entered its 100 and more than 100 days, of course, as we speak. A lot of important things are happening as far as this conflict is concerned, whereas on the one hand, diplomatic efforts seem to be moving in, but are they moving in the right direction? Will they have any impact whatsoever? 108 days have passed, the casualties keep on increasing, the number of injured keep on increasing, and so many other modalities pertaining to health and others. We've been joined to talk more about this by Bakir Younas. He's an Arab journalist working in Pakistan, and he's here right here in the studios. Bakir, thank you very much to have joined us. Bakir, let's talk about I'll begin with the attacks by Israel on the Gaza Strip. Whereas the death toll has surpassed 25,000, the number of injured has also surpassed 65,000. What kind of evolution are you foreseeing with some countries vying for an end to this conflict, or a ceasefire, or a truce? What are your expectations?
As far as the Palestinian concern, you see, there is less hope, seriously, in the upcoming situation, because as we see, there's still ongoing support to the Israelis to eliminate as much as they want from the Gazan people and from the infrastructure of Gaza. We are seeing still full support from US, Germany, France, even despite some statements here and there to ease down, to calm down, but they have never asked them or forced them to stop the killing, or at least to avoid killing civilians, children and women. So this kind of situation means that it's going to a worse situation. Recently we have, Hamas have released documents of 18 pages. We have explained why we are in this situation. So speaking about Hamas or other groups, or speaking about Palestine as well. See, the point is, Palestine, since around 100 years, 105 years, they are under occupation. 30 years under the British colonialism, then after that under the Israeli and Jewish occupation. So the people are fed up. Despite that, there is 17 years, Gaza itself was under siege for 17 years. So you see, we are in a situation, any international law or international community, any big power, US, whoever have ever stand for Palestinians just to at least give them their rights, right of living as a human being. So since this is the situation, and at the time people stood up for their own rights, so we are again seeing the situation is even have gone more worse, more fatal. So it seems that there is a less chances really in a hope that these kind of countries, these countries who have power, who have this military power, will really stand for the Palestinians to end the situation, the massacres that every minute, every day happening in Gaza.
All right, I'll refer to a statement that was recently made by Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan, who said we need peace and stability in the Middle East, which is only possible through resolving the Palestinian issue. He also said that there is no possibility of normalization of ties with Israel without establishing a Palestinian state. And he said this in an interview with the CNN. How important is this statement for you? And do you feel that Israel might bow under this pressure, or it does not even care about whosoever will make the statement, whether it is the US, whether it's the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, whether it is other countries in the Middle East?
A country like Saudi Arabia, of course, have its value, have its power, have its stance in the region. You see, the Israelis are living where? They're living in the middle of the Arabs. So we know that one of the biggest Arab countries is Saudi Arabia. So if you don't want to listen to what Saudi Arabia is saying, so it means you are losing the whole situation.
I completely agree.
So I think they have, it's not a pressure only. It is a situation they have to deal with, either to accept what the Arabs or Muslims are saying, or you have to leave the whole country. You know, with the defense minister, the Israeli defense minister himself said, either we change the situation, or otherwise we will not be able to live in the whole Middle East. He didn't even mention Palestine. He said the whole Middle East. So this is what happens.
He's right in his statement, you know, the way there have been going on about since the 7th of October. And even before that, you know, 7th October is a new chapter as far as their brutalities are concerned. But even before that, look at 2014, look at the other years before that, the way they have massacred Palestinians, and there is no ounce of humanity or the notion of human rights within at least within the Israeli government. What will or what should be happening now? We know that the Israeli and the Palestinian sides are meeting with the European Union countries. All the European Union countries, whosoever have read about, whether it be Joseph Borrell from the EU, whether it be the Germans, whether it be the other countries in Europe, they all want a two-state solution, and they say this is going to be our priority. But again, will Israel listen?
I don't think Israel will listen, because now they are in a situation, they think that what happened in 7th of October means that Palestinians can again be strong, they can again demand their rights. So for them, it's either to be or not to be. For them, it is either we, the Palestinians, or the Israelis. So I think for them, they have a different concept. The European Union, the United Nations, the international community are looking for a situation where the rules and regulations they have actually they have worked for years to put those, to make them, to make it a workable things. It's not workable so far, because the Israelis are not accepting these rules. They are actually not bowing to them. They understand if one day they will accept these rules, this means they have to end the occupation. So for them, accepting rules means not to be inside Palestine.
But they sooner or later will have to accept those rules, because they are under regulation. I mean, under the United Nations as well, but the fact also remains that they have never, accepted whatever the United Nations said. You remember how the Israeli ambassador talked to even Antonio Guterres. He said, you're not in a position to even stand as the Secretary General, and you need to step down. But speaking of Antonio Guterres, he has also denounced Israel for what he calls the heartbreaking deaths of Palestinian civilians in Gaza. He says that these military operations have spread mass destructions and killed civilians on a scale unprecedented during his time as Secretary General. And he has also said that it is unacceptable for Israel to not, to resist statehood for the Palestinians. When all of these, the same statement is emanating from the UN, from the EU, even more or less from the United States, if I'm not wrong, then what is that tipping point that you feel will put the final nail in the coffin for Israel as far as this two-state solution is concerned?
I think Israelis themselves, they will never accept two-state solutions. For them, means accepting the state of Palestinians, it means that they accept the existence of Palestinians. So this is something they don't want to accept. The same, you have to look also on the Palestinian side. Palestinians, why would the Palestinians accept an occupiers on their land? So it is not something that a Palestinian will accept as well. Because, what does it mean two-state solution? It means that Palestinians have to stand harmless for the Israelis, and beside a nuclear country who have all the weapons, the newest ever made. So it is not an equal. The equation is wrong. This is something wrong with this equation. This
then
equation
what
can't
needs to be done to
prevail.
make that equation right?
See, the ultimate solution is to ask the occupiers to leave the country. There's no way else. They came by force, and they have to go by force. Otherwise, if they have this Russian mind, they have the understanding that okay, we are occupiers, we have to leave. There's something else, but I don't think they have this Russian mind. So, what came by force have to leave by force.
All right. Now, what about the almost 2.3 million Palestinians who've been displaced now? What is their fate in your point of view? Will they ever be able to return to Gaza, or will they be forced to live in other countries?
Palestinians are refusing to be taken out from Palestine, to migrate from Palestine, to migrate from Gaza. Yes, there is some situations of people who have to for medical, but as a concept of leaving Palestine, it is not there at all. There's people again coming back to the north of Palestine, where there's there's now a kind of hunger happening in that area in the north of Palestine. There is no any possibility to even for water to reach there. So, but still, you see, the Palestinians have accepted to sacrifice for the right. It's okay for them to sacrifice, but it's not okay for them to leave the right. So leaving a country, it's meaning leaving your right, leaving your honor, it's leaving a huge thing, leaving your holy place. For them, it's your land, it's your everything. So,
all right. Final question, and I would like a quick answer to that. We're a bit short of time. Malaysia's foreign minister wants to back Palestine becoming a United Nations member. Mohammed Hassan, who is the foreign minister, says that he's going to advocate for the state of Palestine to become a full member of the United Nations at the meetings in New York this week. Do you feel this is a reality that could happen?
If it can happen, it's not a big deal. Even if it happens, what will happen? What will change the situation? We have Guterres himself. We have the whole United Nations. They couldn't do anything. So making one Palestinian representative there in the United Nations, would they change? This won't change anything. What only will change is pushing back the occupiers from Palestine.
All right. Thank you very much, Bakir, Younas, Arab journalist, of course, from Pakistan, joining us and explaining the latest situation as far as that is concerned. We'll be having your input on a very regular level in the coming days as well. Let's hope some kind of solution comes, starting with a ceasefire and ending with a solution that is acceptable to the Palestinians. That is what we hope for, that is what we pray for, and that we also might be able to pray together in the Al-Aqsa Mosque one day, inshallah. Thank you very much, Bakir, to have joined us. Let's come to our last story, and that concerns Ron DeSantis, who has dropped out of the United States presidential race and has endorsed Donald Trump. Now, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has ended his Republican U.S. presidential campaign just before the New Hampshire primary and has endorsed Donald Trump after failing to emerge as a serious challenger for the White House against, of course, the 77-year-old Donald Trump. This decision comes less than 2 days before this New Hampshire primary, which also showed him far behind Donald Trump and former United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley. Now, Trump has also set aside months of criticism and mockery of DeSantis because this is, of course, what he's famous for, and has praised the governor, saying he was looking forward to work together to defeat President Joe Biden. At the same time, there's also Nikki Haley, and let's see what happens. Nikki Haley is the challenger to Donald Trump for the Republican presidential nomination. Whether that happens or not is something we will all want to see in the coming days and weeks. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you, inshallah, tomorrow with news story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.